Yeah, good morning, everybody. Excited to be here. I'll be working with the Leonard Transportation Center. Brief background, I worked for Caltrans District 8 for 32 years, retired back in 2015 as the director of Caltrans District 8. As you know, District 8 encompasses both Riverside and San Bernardino County. Went from there to the consulting world, worked for Parsons, WSP, Rail Pros, and currently HMTB. I actually worked with the Leonard Transportation Center back in the days with Caltrans. I supported that program, and I'm excited to be here. And currently, I will be serving as the chair of the Leonard Transportation Center. So I'm glad to be here, and I look forward for our dialogue and future events. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Bassam, and thanks for being here. Next, we have Aaron Rogers, the extraordinaire CEO of Omnitrans and our great host and sponsor.
Good morning. Whoa. Thank you, Dr. Collins. A little loud this morning. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. Thank you to those in the room and those on Zoom. Welcome. We see you out there. It is Omnitrans' pleasure, as always, to host the Leonard Transportation Center Dialogue Series. First, let me start on a brief background about Omnitrans. The agency was established in 1976 through a joint powers agreement. We carry approximately 8 million passengers a year throughout our 480-mile service area. We are situated here in the Valley area of, as you know, the largest county in our country. We serve 15 cities in the unincorporated areas of San Bernardino County in our service area. Omnitrans is the largest mobility provider in San Bernardino County. We're also a large employer in this region, employing about 550 people, and we take our role as an employer and an economic generator very seriously. Today, our topic, the interplay of aviation and ground transportation in the Inland Empire, related to goods movement. I think it's going to be really interesting. We have so many exciting transportation projects in the region that relate to connecting to this infrastructure that we have in the two airports and in all of the goods movements that's happening. The air-ground relationship is critical, bringing literally billions of dollars in jobs and development into our region and supporting manufacturing community needs around the country. Really, how much of what's happening is starting right here in our region. I look forward to hearing more about the ways in which innovation and partnership are very positively impacting goods movement here in the Inland Empire. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you to Dr. Collins and your team for your ongoing partnership and the work that you are doing to consistently bring, this timely information and discussion to us. So I will turn it back over to Dr. Collins and to the Dean.
So much, Aaron, and thanks so much. I got my speaking notes now. Was jumping on. Okay, next I'd like to invite up the Dean of the Jack Brown College, Dr. Tomas Gomez-Arias.
Thank you, Professor Collins. And here I thought I was getting a promotion. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm sorry I cannot be there with you today, but I'm really looking forward to this conversation, to hearing more about what's going on in the interplay between ground transportation, air transportation, how it impacts the communities where we are, both socially and in terms of economic development, because the two airports, in combination with everything else that is happening in our region, they're big contributors to the economic development of the region and to all sorts of economic activity. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here with the Leonard Transportation Center and the Jack Brown College of Business and Public Administration at Cal State San Bernardino. And I'm here to listen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dean, for being here and for your support. Okay, next, I'd like to just take a minute and thank all of our sponsors because we have some really great sponsors, some in the room, a lot in the room. I'd like to thank HNTB, of course, who has been a platinum sponsor and really a founder of this event, as well as the Ontario International Airport, who's in the room up there, and the San Bernardino International Airport, who's been a great friend and sponsor. Our gold sponsors, Omnitrans, and SoCalGas, hi, thanks for coming, as well as the U.S. National Science Foundation and Woodruff and Smart attorneys. And then we have a number of silver sponsors, XEP, Foothill Transit. I know Doran's up there. He wouldn't make it. Global Leadership Alliance, Lane, Metrolink, SCAG, Sarusa Engineering, Theodora Oninger, and VCS Engineering. So we're environmental. Thanks so much for our sponsors for making this this event possible. All right. So I'd also like to thank, let's see, anybody here? Yeah, I'd like to thank all of our speakers really quick. So Mike Burrows, thanks for coming. It's great to see you, and as well as Dr. Grace Martin. It's really great to meet you, and thank you for coming. And Atif Akade, who's on line, thanks for being here. And we should just say a really quick shout out, happy birthday, because it's his birthday today, so. I'd also like to express our gratitude for the planning committees, of course, Aaron Rogers, Doran Barnes, Josh Landis from Foothill Transit, and Matt Bushman from HNTB, Michelle Casey from the San Bernardino International Airport, and Otis Greer. Hi, Otis. Thanks for being in the room. So thanks for everyone. Okay. Now, I'm going to give a brief, it's a little bit different this time. I'm going to give a brief overview. And so I have a few slides to share with you to talk about supply chain and logistics and some of the numbers that we look at and some of the data that exists within the region. So we'll just pull that up. So the Inland Empire is one of 12 major inland ports, and as defined as areas that are located outside of large airports or seaports. And so it's one in an area that's we see that it's a location of where border processing trade is shifted inland and multiple modes of transportation are available in combination of value-added services. So again, going a bit into the literature of what an inland port, so thinking about the whole region as an inland port. And then we have specific intermodal centers that are inland ports as well. And we see that at March Air Force Base, we see that at San Bernardino, and we see that, though they're not officially, quote unquote, inland ports, we also see that at the Ontario International Airport. So air cargo at ports, they exist in conjunction with passenger facilities and are becoming more common in the region. I'm going to go like this a little bit better. So, and they're dedicated cargo ports. And we see that with the Ontario International Airport. And then in 1997, we had March Air Force Base in Riverside County developed into an air cargo inland port facility called the March Inland Port. And you'll hear more about that today. And then we have the San Bernardino International Airport Authority and the Inland Valley Development Agency that work to create industrial and commercial opportunities for the San Bernardino area, and they've been doing that quite well. And I've only been around for about 15 years now in this community, and it's changed tremendously from 15 years ago to today, and what we've seen happen. It's been tremendous, the growth. There's also who we don't have represented, but still in our region, the Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, which is at the former George Air Force Base in Victorville. And then we have, again, a number of inland container ports with BNSF, Barstow International Gateway, the big, which they're working to build. And so interesting to see how that's going to function with our region and the amount of commercial traffic moving through, as well as the intermodal facility that we can see just a bit over here in the city of San Bernardino, right there. So we have a number, again, of facilities, inland ports, thinking about the region as an overall global inland port, and then, again, these specific pieces. Our next slide, please. Can't really see this, but just wanted to show a little bit of the numbers right now. About 27% of our of our employment is in this sector, in the trade, transportation, and utilities sector. And so that sector is still growing within our region, and it's an important part of the employment base here. And then, so our next slide, and this is some work that we've done. In our next slide, yeah, okay. So this is some work that we did, and it's a larger report that we have online on our on the LTC website, and it looks at this one, first one, is looking at the Inland Empire, and we've divided it into 6 different regions. So we have a northern region, we have a center region, a north center, we have a western region, a south center, a south region, and then an eastern region, to kind of look at how transportation is occurring and what is the origin and destination of medium and heavy duty trucks within our region. And so you can see this is a concentration of bidirectional. So this is bidirectional trips between these 6 different regions in the Inland Empire. And the concentration, of course, is up towards the Barstow area. So you can see up here, and there's a large concentration in our western section. There's a large concentration, of course, in the north center, which is right around there, of course, around where the airport is located, and the rail yards, and then also down in the Riverside region. So, and then these are the first table is looking at medium duty, these are heavy duty, and then this is a mix. So again, you can see the concentration. There's a lot of movement within our region, with some areas exceeding 150,000 trips. So our next slide. So this one is looking at trips into the region from outside the buffer area. So we did a 77-mile buffer area, which you'll see right here, which is that purple line there. So thinking about the trucks coming into our area and outside of our area. And so again, you see it's from the number 1 map up in the corner, the left-hand side is medium duty, we have heavy duty, and we have medium and heavy duty vehicles. So if we just concentrate here, we see that there's a number of bi-directional trips into our region from truck traffic. But again, a lot of movement of trucks within our region, between those different subregions. And then finally, those are about 30,000 trips of heavy duty traffic. Our next slide shows some of these are some of the long distance or the long haul trips outside of our region. So these are trips that are going out. And again, we see a large concentration of trucks that are going out of our area, particularly from the western side here, as well as the San Bernardino concentration area. So the truck traffic we know is tremendous within our area, and some of them exceeding up to 50,000 trips. So we see a lot of movement of goods and evidence, a number of trucks that drive by the Omnitrans area. Then we all live it every day. Like we all see the trucks moving. We know that it's here. We understand. And this report looked at the transition of the fleet and thinking about opportunity charging for the fleet as it transitions to electric. We would look and see also the hydrogen will be an important part of this conversation. And I know that our airports are also working to think about these transitional zero emission vehicles as they come into our areas. So my next slide, my final slide, and then the airports are really central to the movement of goods within our area. There's a lot of activities that are occurring. Again, there are these inland ports, these central inland ports that are really there for the movement of goods and the facilitation of goods movement in our region. And again, more work needs to be done to understand these connections. And I think today's conversation is really a beginning, right? I know a lot of studies are out there, and this is one of I'll put my complaint hat on because this is one of my complaints. We have a lot of work that's done, and it's done by private consultants. And a lot of that work is not to the public eye. I think we need more academic work. We need more open public work where people can discuss and really think about the future of the community. And so I hope that as the Leonard Transportation Center continues on, we can be part of that conversation and really help to bring the information that needs to come to the community for that public conversation and, keep it democratic and open. There we go. So with that, I will go to our next piece, which is a audience poll. So we're going to ask, how does surface transportation infrastructure impact the efficiency of cargo operations at airports? Again, as you all know, these aren't very scientific. We just throw them out there to get people thinking about it. So A, it allows for faster loading and unloading of cargo, reducing turnaround times. It provides limited access to airport, causing delays in cargo delivery. That one doesn't make much sense, does it? Increases transportation costs due to longer routes and increased fuel consumption. It facilitates better coordination among freight carriers, improving overall logistics and reducing bottlenecks. And then it has no significant effect on carbohydrates. And there are two probably answers to this, but you only have to answer one because we don't have the option to answer two. 65% facilitates better coordination among freight carriers, improving overall logistics and reducing bottlenecks. And we could also say, it allows for faster loading and unloading of cargo, reducing turnaround times. Okay, thanks so much for getting into the mood of our conversation. And I'd like to invite up our next speaker, who has again been a great mentor of mine, helped out on many things, given great advice. Mike Burrows, who's the Chief Executive Officer of the San Bernardino International Airport. And Mike, the floor is yours.
Well, thanks for having me. And Aaron, thanks for hosting. It's nice to be on this side of town. It's a very long drive, but we made it in one piece here. So pleased to be with everybody, and it's always cool to hang out with Grace and Audif. For those that don't know, we do try to compare notes any chance that we can possibly get. This airport business is not easy sometimes, and so I want to thank both of you for your partnership and all of your feedback. It's been very helpful to me. So I'm trying to find PowerPoint slides. So they're coming. Okay. Oh wow. All right. So for those of you don't know, there is an airport in San Bernardino. It was an Air Force base for a better part of my life growing up, and it's kind of a special place for me. So my folks actually met at Norton. They were actually married in the chapel behind my office. So when you think you've got tough critics, mom and dad are no slouches on that one. But we wanted to kind of share a little bit of the trajectory that we've been through, and Grace will have some similar reactions given what happened down in Riverside. But if you weren't here in 1988, you wouldn't have seen essentially the city that was the city within cities that was Norton Air Force Base. And it was, to say it's an economic engine is an understatement. When we were announced for closure officially in '94, 10,000 jobs left the area quickly. That was about 8,000 military, 2,000 civilian. And what that actually equated to and the total consumer impact of that job loss was over 15,000 jobs leaving the area, which is beyond devastating. So the upper right-hand corner of the slide there is actually one of the guard shacks that greeted you when you came to and from Norton Air Force Base. And obviously, they were quite pleasant, but when you're trying to open things up for business, that's probably not the best welcome wagon to throw out there in front of folks. So we've been hard at work for many, many years trying to change that at San Bernardino. Next slide. So that's what we started with, 1994. That blue line became the very first project that we embarked on with the U.S. Department of Commerce. It's a $9 million project that removed the guard shacks, took the guard shacks down, and started to rebuild and replace the main backbone infrastructure. So not just the roadways, but every single utility that was underneath it. All had to be replaced, and that's a common theme that we find in former military bases. Is they do take a lot of work to get back up to par and to commercial standards. Next slide. So fast forward, and as we started to get ownership of the property, primarily in the late 90s, early 2000s, the planets kind of aligned, and we were able to embark on a public-private partnership. It's one of many that we have now, but that was with Ross Perot Jr.'s company, Hillwood, out of Fort Worth, Texas. And we became branded Alliance California after their flagship project, Alliance Texas in Fort Worth. And that has been a major catalyst for building out the commercial industrial areas of the former base and expanding beyond those guard shacks well into the other areas of the city of San Bernardino. We're just over 16 million square feet of new development and counting. And with the market being a little slower right now, there's new product ready to come online, but that probably won't start turning dirt till next year. But it's still in queue and moving forward. Next slide. So like our other airports in the region, we are very fortunate to have a foreign trade zone designation. This was something that the IVDA did back in 1996. And when you're talking about goods movement, programs such as this are vital to be able to continue that growth and expand. So we're proud to be embarking on yet another modification to that FTZ right now with Port of Long Beach. So we are an expansion zone under Long Beach's designation. And so companies like Pep Boys avail themselves of those benefits to expedite not just the processing, but reduce time and cost. And Grace has a lot more operators than we do. So we're trying to change that as we move along. Next slide. So we talked about losing jobs. Every year we do a hard count of actual full-time direct jobs. So not full-time equivalents, not what I'll call developer math, but boots on the ground, because that's what Norton was, boots on the ground. So this past year, in calendar year 2023, we've finished that year with just over 18,000 jobs. That's the airport and the business park combined, producing a total economic output of over $4.8 billion. So that 15,000 that we lost equated about 2.9 billion of economic output gone, as in 2009 dollars. So we're making some headway in that. But the one I've really appreciated is in the industry classifications. The last 5 years, air transportation has been in the top 3 highest growth sectors for us. So the jobs are still coming, but they're a different category of employment. And as we find in airport jobs, that traditionally is a higher wage producing, higher skill environment there. So that's really cool for us. Next slide. Ooh. So talk about infrastructure. So there's an old saying in the airport biz that this will put Audif to sleep. If you've seen one airport, you've seen one airport. And it sounds cheesy because it kind of is cheesy, but there's a lot of truth to that. And I think our airports are definitely a reflection of that. If you think there's one rule book of how to develop and build an airport, well, no. There's a lot of ways to approach it. And you have to really take the identity of your airport to heart when you're taking on projects. And that includes our surface transportation. So that chart right there, that map, is a depiction of investments that many organizations have made around our airport over the last 30 years. So we are blessed at San Bernardino. with being surrounded by freeway infrastructure. And unfortunately, we're cursed by regional arterials that need a whole lot of improvement to be able to safely and quickly get people to and from the facility. So with great partners like Otis and SBCTA, there's been a lot of investment in those freeways and interchanges. Obviously, coming over here, I got to see firsthand the major I-215 renovations that were done over a number of years. The same thing occurred down at Tippecanoe, and then we partnered with Caltrans and our member agency, the city of Loma Linda, recently to do on and off ramp improvements to Mountain View, just south of the airport. And then our IVDA invested $26 million to build a new access up from Interstate 10 on Mountain View. Never thought I'd be building bridges. That didn't sound intuitive when it comes to airports, but we do need more access. And that continues to be an issue that we're working on. The yellow lines right there that you see is one of our most recent projects with the city of Highland. And that was upgrading the 3rd and 5th Street corridor to improve our direct access to State Route 210. So that was just finished about a month ago. And there's more coming. So thankfully, the city of Highland has also got some more funding coming for more additional interchange upgrades at 5th Street. And then SBCTA completed major infrastructure improvements on State Route 210, adding HOV lanes over there. So you can see that depicted up top. The blue bubble up there is a future project, and that's one that's been on the books. I think we started this in 2004, and that's with San Manuel looking at a new interchange at Victoria Avenue. And that is continuing on. And then our surface transportation doesn't stop with just the roads. We have been working, and Bassem can talk to this probably better than anybody, on a concept plan on a potential aero connection with SBCTA. So that is literally a crayon drawing on a map right now, but that is something that we are wanting to move forward and analyze further. Next slide. So where we spend most of our time the last 4 or 5 years is just north of the airport. So you'll see the 3rd and 5th project there. There's future improvements to Victoria Avenue planned. And then we're working on wrapping up an EIR to do the balance of 3rd and 5th just north of the airport. When it comes to airport access, though, next slide. The cargo side of our house is a relatively new thing. We've always had unscheduled cargo, so drop-in flights since the late 90s. But about 5 years ago, that really changed when UPS gave us a try with some seasonal holiday cargo, and then that rolled into year-round operations. What we found out with that project was, and our friends at Stater Brothers were very vocal with me around that holiday season, because the main gate that we were using to get UPS trucks on and off the airport happened to block one of the major entrance areas into their distribution center. So employees were trying to come and go to work at Stater Brothers, and they were getting demerits because our trucks didn't allow them to get to their front door. So we immediately went to work on a brand new cargo access to the airport. That's what you'll see in the upper right-hand side there being constructed. And then with the advent of FedEx coming right behind them the following year, we thought we'd have a little fun with it. And we have a 737 tail fin entry sign there to be able to make sure that they get on and off as quickly and safely as possible. FedEx amped up their game even further, and the second year of operation opened up a FedEx ground facility about a half a block down the street from that. And then in 2021, we opened Amazon Air's Southern California Oh, all right. So as far as cargo volume goes, we were just about dead last in the country back in 2017. And then with the advent of UPS and FedEx, and then obviously Amazon Air, last year we wrapped up at 25th in the country. So still climbing on up. Not quite to the level that Audif's got, but we're trying to do our part. That's both domestic and international cargo. And there you see there our bonded warehouse facility that's operated by Prime Flight. Next slide. So as business lines go, yeah, we're now prominently in the cargo business. But in 2022, we also dipped our toe into the water of passenger service. So Breeze Airways started flying with us. We're about to celebrate our second year anniversary coming up this weekend, actually. But we also continue to support quite a bit of heavy aircraft maintenance. There is a common theme with aircraft that they do tend to need work from time to time. So that has been a core employer for us for many, many years. And then we also operate an executive terminal catering to international and domestic charter flights, and that's based in our facility. But we also like the little guys. And so we have a pretty vibrant general aviation community out on the east end of the field, which continues to grow. Next slide. So that's kind of the stats as we wrapped up. Every year, us airports get to report to FAA all of that wonderful data that goes into a big database that we all then stare at. And so for total passengers, Audif, he moves decimal places on his numbers, but we're pretty proud of wrapping up 50,000 passengers in 2023. We've actually done over 100,000 and counting. Why that's important for us is those FAA dollars that come down through grant funds. You don't get any formula money for anything but passengers or cargo. So it's about tons of cargo. It's about how many passengers are coming through your facility. So we're finally in that club, which we're pretty happy about. Next slide. But technology being what it is, we're also trying to stay ahead of things. And so Ms. Kim Benson, our UAS administrator, embarked on this journey with us back in 2020. And what this effort is a on-airport drone training and test facility, which kind of seems counterintuitive because for the better part of my career, I was told, oh, you can't ever fly drones at airports. Well, no, there's an added sentence to that. You can't fly drones at an airport without the proper permission. And what we do and what Kim's team does is teach the best and safest drone training skills to not just folks transitioning careers, but literally 16-year-old kids in high school becoming drone pilots, which is pretty darn exciting. Why is this important for ground transportation? Well, everybody thinks this is last mile cargo delivery. Well, it's that, but it's not just that. So we are now embarking on a chapter of aviation where we're talking about things like advanced air mobility, air taxis, literally being able to get from our regional metropolitan centers to a commercial airport with electric aircraft, with hybrid aircraft, with electric hydrogen aircraft. And little did we know that Kim would be right in the forefront of all those discussions by operating a drone training center. So it's pretty exciting stuff. It's rapidly changing constantly. And if you go to the next slide, it's also international. So you think back 2020, it doesn't seem that long ago, but Kim's been all around the world being able to advance not just the programs of the center, but literally being at the cutting edge of this really cool new technology out there. So she's not done yet. I think there may be a few others on the horizon. And just last week, she announced her latest partnership in the nonprofit space with a really cool program that she's going to be embarking on now going into the fall in South Central Los Angeles, being able to bring this tech, a train the trainer, custom tailored solution to a nonprofit in South Central LA. So I wanted to acknowledge Kim's achievements in that, and it's really, really cool. Next slide, if you could. So that's kind of how we shape up today. We're a one runway airport, but it's when it comes to access, we are looking for every access we can possibly get. So Otis, if you got any more money in your back pocket, we'll certainly show you some places to invest it. But it really is a regional team approach when it comes to this, and being able to think through those solutions, really is everybody's job when it comes down to that. So with that, I'll go ahead and wrap up, and just want to thank everybody for their time. Thanks.
All right, thanks so much, Mike. Great information. And even though I know about the airport and I've been to the airport many times, I learned new things. So thanks so much for sharing that with us. Okay, we have our second poll for today. And then how do the locations of cargo airports influence the choice of surface transportation options available for freight movement? Complex questions. So cargo airports located near urban centers typically offer more diverse transportation options, including trucking, rail, and shipping. That one seems interesting, no? We have airports situated far from major highways limit the accessibility of surface transportation, resulting in higher reliance on rail services only. Proximity to freight hubs and distribution centers enhances the efficiency of surface transportation, allowing for faster turnaround times. And D, the geographic location of a cargo airport has minimal impact on surface transportation options, as all regions have equal access to transport methods. So again, there's two possible answers to this question, so don't feel that you know, and no right or wrong. Well, there is actually a right or wrong, but we got. It's all what we got. Okay. Oh, look at that. Proximity to freight hubs and distribution center enhances the efficiency of surface transportation, allowing for faster turnaround times. That is correct. But you could also be correct with the cargo airports located near urban centers typically offer more diverse transportation options, right? So we have rail, we have trucking, and we have lots of shipping because of these networks, these transportation, these infrastructure networks that exist, and how important infrastructure is to how our communities function. And really going into sustainability issues, right? If it functions well, you have less idling trucks on your road, and you want less idling trucks on the road because that leads to all kinds of issues, right? So a smooth running infrastructure leads to a better environment, greater sustainability, faster movement, greater efficiencies. And with that, I'd like to bring up our next speaker, Dr. Grace Martin, who I've just met, and I'm pleased to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. Such an honor to be here. Good morning, everybody. Grace Martin with the Marshall Powers Authority. It's actually quite humbling to be here. Usually I've been in this area over 20 years, and you usually hear about San Bernardino County, Riverside County, two sort of separate regions doing their own thing. But I really want to thank Mike and Atif about bringing me over the border and being very intentional about building relationship with me and looking at the region as a more cohesive sort of area that we need to partner up on and talk about collective solutions that can benefit everybody in the region, because we are one Inland Empire region. So thankful for this invitation, opportunity to share a little bit about March JPA and what we do in Riverside County. So we are made up of 4-member jurisdictions, the cities of Riverside, Paris, Marina Valley, County of Riverside. My board, my commission is made up of 2 elected officials from each of these jurisdictions. And just like Mike mentioned, we do have a military sort of background. Next slide, please. Our area came from the March Air Force Base. We are now the March Air Reserve Base. We used to be a SAC base, which is Strategic Air Command, played a vital role in the past wars, past theaters since World War II. Next slide, please. When BRAC happened back in the 90s, the Air Force Base realigned from 6,600 acres to what's now 2,200 acres. So we do still have military at March. We have over 30 units representing all 5 military services, and it's hosted by the 452nd Air Mobility Wing. So our wing commanders that essentially run the base are colonels that run that mobility wing. Next slide, please. So this is just a map of our area. Highlighted in white is what used to be the 6,600 acre March Air Force Base. So we inherited 3,500 acres as the JPA from the Department of Defense. And so our main mission during that process is to restore the jobs and local economy, what was lost when BRAC occurred. Next slide, please. And highlighted in yellow are those properties that we inherited. West of the 215 freeway, we have most of our properties there. It's the most active development area today. And we have a little area called the northeast corner. You can see the little box on the northeast corner of that area. That is entitled for a medical campus. And then you see the 2 triangular parcels on both sides of the runway. Those are our airport parcels. So we are an airport authority under our charge, as well as a land use authority, which means we, like a city, do our own permitting, our own zones, our own general plan. So we do not go to the cities or the county for any entitlements or permitting reviews. We handle our own. And for that reason, you can say that we're very business friendly and we're able to cut out the red tape for our businesses. And also for the airport, my commission essentially oversees that and all the development that occurs at the airport. Next slide, please. So we have strategic partnerships that we rely on for development. Again, the Air Reserve Base is a key component to our development. We have to run everything through them because of their military missions. They're very active in their trainings, and so we support them in whatever they need. We also have Millionaire, who helps us run our airport. And then we have development groups that we form public-private partnerships with for our development. Lewis Group of Companies, Hillwood, Waypoint. US Vets is our nonprofit partner for veteran housing on the base. So I have a slide on that. And then we also have our Marchfield Air Museum, the largest display of aircraft west of the Mississippi is at our museum site. Next slide. You have regional benefits, just like San Bernardino and Ontario. Very good access to corridors, 215, 15 freeway, 60. Also not, close proximity to the ports as well as to the Mexican border. And again, strategic partnerships. We do have a foreign trade zone. I'll touch on that momentarily. Next slide, please. So just looking at the west of 215 and how we do partnerships, a lot of that is logistics. So when we talk about goods movement, we have about 15 million square feet built west of the 215, and a little over 10 million of that is logistics. And a lot of that is because with our military missions, they do care about the density and how many people that you congregate in a single area. So a lot of our uses are logistics for that reason, is to protect our airspace for the military. Next slide, please. These are just a few of our users, very active. UPS, you'll see some similarity with San Bernardino, and you'll see some similarity with Ontario as well. March is a reliever airport to Ontario and San Bernardino. So for that reason, you'll see a lot of similar air cargo movers, goods movement users in the 3 airports. Next slide. And you can just click this. I'll give you an example. So this is, this star marks what we call our South Campus. Next slide, please. We've built about 1,300 acres to date of these types of business park industrial uses. UPS, Amazon are big users in our South Campus. Next slide. A lot of our users are focusing on going green. So for example, Cisco, our Cisco Riverside site have set a sort of a green standard. I think they're trying to meet about 27%, or it's right there, 27% green energy in 2030. Next slide, please. So they are doing some really cool, innovative things with electrifying their site at Riverside. And that includes going green on their fleet. Next slide, please. So currently they have 40 heavy-duty electric trucks that run in and out of the site with 40 dual-port electric vehicle charging, and then 6 hybrid electric refrigerated trailers. The manufacturing of these EV trailers is quite slow, but they're looking to up that fleet over the next until 2030 to meet their green goals. They're installing a lot of EV chargers on site, as well as some solar panels on site. A very aggressive goal for this big user, but we're very excited about what they're doing on site, because I think that's setting a new standard for a lot of our logistics companies at Meridian. Next slide, please. Here's another user that's going green. Amazon has a last mile facility they just built in our South Campus, about 200,000 square feet. And they have 1,300 employees. About 1,000 of those are their drivers. 100%, well, about half of their delivery vans are EV. And they do plan to go 100% green next year in 2025. So their goal is to go zero net energy for the building, for the site next year. Next slide, please. So as you can see, a big component of our contribution to goods movement is based on the actual buildings and less on the air cargo side. And going to our airport, next slide, please. So again, we're a reliever airport. Next slide. That allows us to get annual entitlement funds from the FAA. Our main operators, Amazon Prime Air, who is largely stationed at San Bernardino, but they do have a presence here at March. And we also have military tankers, Mature and Omega, that park at our facility on an annual basis. Next slide. And then we have a small GA component. We do not have passenger flights, and we're not certified to do that. We rely on our partners over at Ontario and San Bernardino. We also have a foreign trade zone, and it's 244. It's the 3rd largest trade zone in the state of California. We cover over 400 square miles of area, so it's most of Western Riverside County. Next slide. Oh, and those stars just mark the users that we have in the zone. Next slide. And this is just some stats from the zone. We employ about 3,000 in the zone and move $2.6 billion worth of goods through the zone. A big economic contributor to our area. Next slide, please. And in our northeast corner, next slide. We don't have any medical uses yet, but we do have a very active partnership with US Vets. This is a picture of a campus that's in development. Half of it is built, and this is for our homeless veterans. There's a lot of rehabilitation services, housing services here, also career training services. Next slide, please. And this is just a snapshot of things that are in that campus for our veterans. Next slide. It does serve homeless men, women, and also families on that campus. The biggest component is career training. In our goods movement strategy, we try to link the employers in our business park to services like this facility. So a lot of their members actually get placed within our employment center at the business park. Our biggest employer to date is UPS. Next slide. And we also, we love our veterans, we love our military history. So one of our council members wanted a memorial park for the military, and we did a War Dog Memorial Park thanks to our partners, Lewis Development. And this was last year's Halloween event, and we're having our second one this year. Next slide, please. Just a plug, shameless plug. You're welcome to attend October 26th. Please join us if you have a fur baby. You want to enter into our competition. If you can't attend, please follow us on social media. We'll have a lot of key pictures to share. Next slide. And next year is our air show. Another plug-in. The next slide, please. We are hosting the golf tournament. I'll be driving the beer little beard trailer, yes. So I don't golf. So April 10th, we're having a golf tournament. All of our funds will be raised for the air show, so you're welcome to attend. Next slide, please. Just a little highlight, 1996 base realignment, we lost $500 million towards our economy and over 10,000 jobs. Next slide. And to date, the former Air Force Base area, which includes the airport and our development area, we've created over 15,000 jobs and $10.1 billion to the local economy. Next slide. And that's it for the March JPA. Thank you again for this opportunity. And I just want to say happy birthday, Adif.
Thank you so much. Again, and I've been on your base because I've been to the museum a number of times. Just a little bit about me. My dad flew P-38s in the Second World War, and your museum has one of the few P-38s that still exist. And if you haven't been there, I suggest you go down and see them because they were remarkable aircraft, and they crashed a lot. So anyways, they didn't crash as much as the P-36s, but they crashed quite a bit. So he had one of those. Anyways, thank you so much. And again, I learned so much about March Air Force and the JPA that I didn't know before. So I really appreciate all you've given us. Okay, before we get to our last speaker of this morning, we have our third poll. What do you think is the total annual economic impact of Ontario International on the region? And you've seen some of the numbers from our other regional airports. So thoughts about between 2 and 5 billion, 5 and 10 billion, 11 to 15 billion, or 15 to 20 billion. And I know there's not a big range there, but, and billions of dollars. It always seems like, what is that actually? I mean, I don't know. It's crazy, right? How much money? Okay. And we'll take a look. Oh, and here oh, no, that's not, there we go. Oh, we have a tie. People are unsure if it's 11 to 15 billion or 15 to 20 billion, but Adif Alkali in a moment is going to tell us what that is. Oh no, 11 to 15 billion is winning out, and we'll see. All right. With that, I'd like to bring up our third speaker, and of course, online. And thank you very much for being here, and especially on your birthday, sharing some time with us. But Adif Elkadeh from the CEO of Ontario International Airport.
Thank you very much, and thank you everybody for having me this morning. I do want to start off with a little bit of a short clip, just kind of giving you a taste of the airport. I believe it is the slide right after this.
Southwest 212, Ontario Tower, good morning, come to track. 1304, contact SoCal departure, have a good day. Wind 6 knots, runway 26 right, clear line. Ontario Tower, 6 knots, before takeoff.
Flight attendants, please prepare for takeoff.
So that really
Airbus
kind of
212, Ontario.
idea of how we do it and all the amazing people that we have working really along the entire airport campus with all of our partners and stakeholders, and I really appreciate you guys having me on today's panel. Really honored to be alongside my colleagues, Mike and Dr. Martin. We always talk about how important it is to acknowledge that there's enough business in our region for all of us to grow, and that's very important to the three of us, and why we continue to collaborate and share notes, as Mike mentioned earlier. And our collective success truly does benefit the region, and that's important for all of us, regardless of what county that we sit in. And so I'm lucky that I get to work with the both of them. I learn something from them every time we get to sit down and meet and speak. So it's an important role for us, and I'm very, very honored and humbled that I get to be a part of it. Next slide. With regards to economic impact, that was a great question to ask right before this. I will say that it is between the 15 to $20 billion of direct and indirect impact of economic impact that the airport has to the region. Really continue to solidify ourselves as a key driver, really, with major players such as UPS, FedEx, Amazon, and soon we will have DHL at our airport as well. We're working on that right now. So we've created a network that not only supports our airport, but also the broader regional economy. And a lot of these names sound familiar that you've heard from Mike and Dr. Martin, and they play a very, very big impact, especially on the cargo side of things for our growth. Next slide. So our growth is really reflected in our national ranking. We are the 10th in the United States for cargo. Now, let's just take a moment and think about that. 2 of the top 25 airports in the country are in this region. I mean, that's pretty amazing. So we're very proud of that. It really plays a big role for us. It talks about our capacity, our partnerships, and really the trust that the industry has placed in us. So what we saw, and we saw a lot of growth when the pandemic started. And I know Mike and Dr. Martin saw the same thing as well, as we became the movers and shakers west of the Mississippi of getting goods out there to people. And as e-commerce continues to grow, we see that continuing to enhance. And it really represents the resilience of this region and the strategic foresight of our team and our stakeholders. So we're very proud of that national ranking, and we'll continue working on that. Now, when we look at where the airport, where it's come, and it used to be operated under Los Angeles World Airports, and November 1st, 2016 is when the airport was transferred over to the joint partnership authority that we have now, the JPA. And the JPA is the airport is owned by the city of Ontario and the county of San Bernardino. We have 5 board members. 2 of them are from the City Council of Ontario. One of them is the San Bernardino County Supervisor, Kurt Hagman, a representative from Riverside County, Dr. Loveridge, whom you see in the photo with Congresswoman Torres, and then an at-large private individual, Julia Gao, who used to be the president of East West Bank. So they play a very significant role in our vision, leading the airport, and how we move forward. When we were under LAWA, we were very constrained. Their priority was their main facility, LAX. It did not really align with the needs of this region. Since regaining that local control, we've really been able to tailor our strategy specifically to our region, focusing on what makes sense for our community and the businesses we support. It's allowed us to respond much quicker to opportunities, invest directly in the airport, and really better serve the people and the companies who depend on us. And that's played a significant role. And we hope that you've seen that. One of the things that we say here as a team and as an organization, it's not my airport, it's truly your airport, it's the community's airport. We're very proud of that. So this year we're on track to reach a very significant milestone. We are right now tracking at the end of the calendar year to be just a little over 7 million passengers. We haven't hit or had seen that number anywhere since 2007. And it's truly a proud achievement for us, reflecting on the strong demand and increasing appeal of ONT to our travelers. Our travelers are beginning to see that from Ontario International, you can go anywhere in the world. And as we grow, we also need to think about the future of connectivity and accessibility. I know Otis is in the room and he always has a lot of money he likes to spend. So we're very happy with our partnership with SBCTA because they are participating in projects like the tunnel, which will connect us to the station in Brightline, and then our partners at Omnitrans and all of the work that they do in connecting our passengers to and from the airport. The upcoming West Valley Connector is also crucial to the future of the airport. I want to assure you that as we get busier, our board is very adamant that we make sure that we're making plans for the future so that we don't see the type of congestion that you might see at other airports. Our thing, and you see it in our logo, is SoCal So Easy. Really, that embodies how easy it is to get in and out of our airport, and we want to maintain that. It's very important for us, and we feel like with the partnerships that we have and working with our stakeholders around the region that we'll be able to do that. And we also want to make sure that ONT is accessible to the communities we serve and really enhancing the Inland Empire's transportation infrastructure. Next slide. This is really a big win for the entire region, not just for the airport. I'm excited to talk about that we received our Custom Borders Patrol designation. It's going to save the airport about $4 million a year. And how the federal government works with their CBP officers is, the port of entry airports, they don't have to pay for this service. The smaller airports, this is a service that they have to pay for of the staff and the officers that are here. In working with CBP, we've been able to show the growth and how competitive we are. But what it also is going to do and why it helps our region is when Mike or Dr. Martin have needs of clearing international cargo, we will have more officers available to share with other airports in our region. And that was a big part of our push with CBP and talking about that and showing our continued growth. One of the other things that we are currently in the process of building and completing is being able to clear international cargo at our airport. So passenger airlines, they especially the international passenger airlines, they make a lot of their money off of the belly cargo that they have on their planes, that's in there in the belly with the suitcases. And unfortunately, if they were to land here, they would not be able to clear that international cargo. We have our flight, China Airlines, that flies to Taipei daily. It got grandfathered in, and they land and they put their international cargo on a truck and drive it all the way to LAX to clear it there and then come back. It is very counterintuitive. It's not efficient. So we have a facility that we are right now working with CBP, and it should hopefully be up and running around the third quarter of 2025. That will help us clear international cargo. And then with the CBP designation, that's very important in what we'll be able to do for our airport and for the region as a whole, and really kind of establishing ourselves as a true port of entry and an aviation gateway into Southern California. Next slide. Looking ahead, really optimistic about what the future holds for the airport and the Inland Empire as a whole. As I mentioned earlier, there's ample opportunity for all of our airports to grow and succeed. We'll continue to collaborate and work together. If you've been through our airport recently, we've made a lot of changes. We made a lot of changes with the type of retail we're providing, the type of food and beverage that we're providing, and the different amenities. We have a brewery in Terminal 2. We've got Dunkin' Donuts in both terminals. One of the things that you sometimes hear in our industry, you haven't really made it until you've got chicken. Well, we've got Chick-fil-A in Terminal 4, which was very exciting. Only took about 6 years to get them open, and we're currently working on getting them open in Terminal 2. Each of our airports has a lounge, the Aspire Lounge as well, and it's not a lounge that's dedicated for a specific airline. It's open to all passengers, and they can utilize that. We really want Ontario International to be a main gateway into Southern California, as I mentioned, and in partnership with Omnitrans, SBCTA, really connecting the world to the Inland Empire and having people have that ease of access in and out of the airport. Again, I wanted to thank you all for having me on today and really appreciate the opportunity at the time. We've been a sponsor, and I really appreciate all of you being here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And if you haven't been to Terminal 4 in such a time, they now have a room that is like the California Museum, and you can sit and you're sitting inside an aquarium, and there's fish going all around. It's amazing. You can sit right before you get on the flight, and you're in that room, and the fish. It's just kudos for that. I really love that in Terminal 4 because that's where I'm always flying out of. All right. So, our last poll question for the day, and this one is, in your opinion, what should airports prioritize to meet future infrastructure needs? Enhancing security measures, developing sustainable transportation options, expanding logistics and cargo capacity, strengthening regional transportation connections, or all of the above? And we'll see what folks say about this one. All right. Oh, next, going down, there we go. All of the above. So really enhancing security measures, developing more sustainable transportation options, expanding logistics and cargo. Oh, no, that one went away. Strengthening regional transportation connections, and then again, all of the above. So yeah, so it's an important piece, really thinking about how our airports and the air cargo ports really function and work within our region. And they're an important component, again, I think, for the future of transport in this area. If you're interested, a number of years back, as this is our 8th year, I believe it was like the 2nd year that we talked about, um, unmanned vehicles, aircraft, and the new design of the movement of cargo, even with drones and other technologies that are out there that some of us think, wow, that's never really going to happen, but it's going to happen. And so again, thinking about how our airports are part of that movement is going to increase, I think, quite a bit within our region. And we need to, again, keep it open and keep the conversation going as it impacts our areas. So I'd like to open it up for discussion now, for questions. Anyone have any questions either here or up online? Of course, I always have my questions, but I try not to speak the whole time. Yes, hold on. Let me get the microphone back there.
This question is for Michael. At the San Bernardino Airport, what airlines fly out of your airport? Is it limited to for the passenger airport, not for
Yeah,
not
so
for cargo?
as far as passenger service goes, we have Breeze Airways currently. That is our one and only airline for the time being. And they've got a year-round route to San Francisco and on to Provo, Utah. They're a relatively young airline, which has been a really good fit for us. So the carrier was actually started by David Neeleman, who is the same guy that founded JetBlue, Azul, a number of other projects. So Breeze is his latest. But we've kind of gotten into the business as they moved out from the East Coast to the West Coast. And we are working with them on possible future additional routes. But as an airport, we like all airlines. Breeze is our first, but that we don't think it'll be our only one long term. So thanks.
Thank you.
Question over here.
Good morning. Thank you, everyone, for your participation, and appreciate the partnership we have with Mike and the San Bernardino folks, and with Audif. Question to Mike and Audif. I just learned that Palm Springs landed that big fish of flight to DC. They're going into Dulles, and what is it that you would need from our community collectively to assist in one of the airports getting one of those flights into DC?
I'm actually going to punt that one to Audif because you've got a lot more connections than I do right now. So I'll let you take that.
Yeah, Otis, that's a great question. I think Mike and I need to talk to Harry at Palm Springs and see what exactly levers that they pulled. But I think the biggest thing from a community standpoint, and what, we have great elected leaders that are out in DC working for the interests of our communities. I do think that's one thing that has become, we just don't have a direct flight, and it's okay. I think it needs to be prioritized and something that is talked about, regardless of the administration. And it is something that, we need to make sure that, all of our organizations that have employed lobbyists that work in DC, that is a constant topic of conversation and consideration to have that direct flight to DC. And I think a lot of people, I mean, it's the biggest county. If you just look at San Bernardino County, the biggest county in the country, it is pretty unacceptable that we don't have that direct access. It is something that we continue to work on, but we do need the community's help, and all of our different businesses and organizations that do have people in DC that they connect with and speak to, that is a very top of mind type of discussion that they have with our elected officials.
And I would just say, don't be shy talking directly to your carriers as well. So we have, believe me, multiple discussions with Breeze. Their network is still pretty young in that vein, but the fact of the matter is neither Audif nor I are shy about making that one of those priority destinations. But it also helps us when the carriers are hearing it from you, the traveling public, because at the end of the day, I love to think that Breeze flies to our airport because it's our airport. The fact of the matter is they're flying to serve a market, and that's true of any airport. So.
Other questions in the room? Oh, here.
Ask questions. He wanted me to ask this question. This is for all three of the airports. A good component of the airports is freight and warehousing. It's a synergistic component. State of California is making it a little more challenging in that realm. How are you folks pushing back, lobbying or whatever, or trying to help with that discussion that's part of the lifeblood of the airports?
I don't know who gets to take that one first, but I'll take a stab at it. So obviously, we, as just wearing a military hat, Norton would have been nothing if it were not for logistics. And Kim and I were just having a discussion last week with one of our partners of all things, the Netherlands. And I think particularly our Inland Empire region needs to be a little more forward-facing about the value that logistics brings to not just an economy, but a way of life. And that really reframing the discussion, that goods movement or logistics, are bad words. Not at all. I mean, the Dutch have been doing logistics for centuries. They might know what they're doing, but even there, all the way across the other side of the world, they're encountering the same type of pushback. And so I think if you looked at our three airports, we've got some shining examples of, changing up that game. Dr. Martin showed some of what's happening there at March, but each one of us, are doubling down every which way we can with EV chargers, with solar, looking at any viable solution to make it more environmentally friendly. But in my view, I think you as a region need to be able to take pride in what you do well. I think everybody can do better, but I think it's okay to say that we're good at logistics, and maybe we have to say it more often.
Okay, I'll go next. So Arif and Mike and I, we meet, every now and then, and we have discussions on sort of regional branding, which I think is really big because I think both counties, and we talk about it, have an identity crisis, not really knowing who we are, who we want to be when we grow up. But we do talk about sort of, instead of being reactive, being proactive on defining who it is that we want to be as a region. And, we shared collectively as a region, the 3 airports bring in over $30 billion worth of economic benefit to the region. That is huge. And so when we talk about contributing to the economy, being leaders in the goods movement discussions, going green, sustainability. I know Atif is doing and his team are doing amazing things at Ontario. Mike has also shared about some innovative stuff that's going on in San Bernardino. And we are also sort of finding our path with logistics at March. But I think collectively, when the 3 airports get together and we talk about all these creative things we're doing, and again, setting some trends in goods movement that you don't hear other airports talking about in their regions, I think that's going to really help us form an identity that this region can be proud of.
Yeah, I believe, exactly what Mike and Dr. Martin said. When the governor signed the bill, it was to limit it near schools, et cetera. We're very, the way our airports are set up, I always, and not to be facetious, but I always ask people, do you not order stuff online? Do you want to stop ordering stuff online? Because we play such a big role in e-commerce. And if you look at the goods movement and kind of what Mike said, for us, it's embracing that we're really good at logistics. This whole region is very good at logistics, but we want to do it in a smart way. When I mentioned the example of China Airlines having to take their cargo and clear it over at LAX, well, okay, that's not really good for the environment to drive all the way there and back. So work with us, and I'm talking about the state and federal government, and how we can, limit those things. And we're taking our responsibility from an environmental and sustainable standpoint very seriously. We just conducted a very intensive audit from an environmental standpoint internally, so that we can create that blueprint and a roadmap, because our goal is to become carbon neutral. So while some people they feel very strongly about warehouses, et cetera, which I understand in certain areas, but when it comes to the economic impact that that these airports provide to the region and the jobs that it creates, I think if you look at what happened during the pandemic and how resilient our region was, both counties, that played a very, very important role. The logistics industry, and we were a part of that. And I think that's what's going to really continue to put us on the map.
All right, thanks for that. And we have a question online, Leslie, trainer.
Hi. So wanted to start by saying hi, Grace. It's good to see you. And as usual, you're doing all kinds of really amazing work. I particularly enjoyed hearing about the growth in your partnership with U.S. vets. I know that a few years ago there was good stuff going on, and love what you're doing with building the campus there. So I have 2 questions. So the first one, Grace, is for you. I'm just curious, do you know how that relationship between the JPA and U.S. vets kind of got off the ground? And the second question I have is, I'm guessing it's related to, to the relationship to maybe BRAC, and so I'm wondering if the San Bernardino Airport has any kind of a similar relationship with U.S. vets, and combining workforce development efforts with strengthening our logistics industry.
Hi, Leslie. Good to see you. The question to U.S. vets, oh gosh, that was over 10 years ago. Stephen Peck, who is the CEO for that nonprofit, they do programs all over California, and they have different housing projects in some major cities like Long Beach. So U.S. vets came to us. They needed a home. They wanted to build in Riverside County. They have a very high growing veteran population in Riverside County. And they also came to us for the Riverside County Housing Authority, looking for a site at March. So JPA donated 10 acres to the nonprofit, and we also took a bond out for $10 million to contribute to their infrastructure needs at the campus. And so they built half of the campus, and they just recently got approved for tiny homes to do the build out, and they're doing transitional sort of model for veterans where they're bringing them in, they're housing them, training, doing rehabilitation work, and then training them towards independent living. They do have an on-site workforce center, as I showed, but the partnership is also with Riverside County and all the resources the county has. So the county has poured a lot of their funding into that program to allow them to expand, but it was founded from the nonprofit approaching us for land and partnership, and they brought in the county along with them. So it's been pretty successful.
And then, yeah, we at San Bernardino, we don't have anything to the scale that Dr. Martin does. What we are very proud of is our partnership with the Norton Air Force Base Museum. So we helped get that off the ground about probably 15 years ago now. And that is a really special thing because we donated some space on the north end of our administrative facility. And we work very closely with them throughout, not just their fundraising campaigns, but being able to get those connections with our employers out there, because they are great at getting the word out when we're trying to, fill some pretty specialized positions. And they do an amazing job, not just out in the community, but celebrating the heritage that we appreciate in our Norton veterans. So I can't get them any closer to us than being in the same building with us. So.
All right, thanks so
Thank
much.
you.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Leslie.
I just said thank you. Appreciate the information.
Thanks so much. Any other questions up online? Because I have one for all three of you as well, and it's a bit of a follow up, I think, with Mr. Allowels's question. But what is your biggest challenge as the transportation sector goes zero emission, right? And so I know that we had a application for a hydrogen space here. And I know that there's a lot of build out and discussion around, the grid and getting the electrification of our region. I don't know if that's the right word, but really getting us built up so that we can, have additional, because as you see, there's a lot of drayage, these short haul trips, which could be electric, but we also have a lot of long haul that comes through our area. And we really need to have an option for those long haul trucks. And I know we're not talking about trucks that much, but that long haul option really is going to be looking at hydrogen. I think everyone's in agreement on that, but we don't have the infrastructure, and we have Mr. Barnes up there, and I just see his picture. I don't see him, but, and I know that they've been working quite a bit within hydrogen, and I know Omnitrans is now thinking about the electrification, but also hydrogen and other fuels. So again, Mike taking the opportunity to hear from our airports, what are your biggest challenges with the movement to zero emission? And we won't talk about, I know there's some electric planes and there's some solar planes and there's some interesting things happening in aviation, but just thinking about it from that connection to the ground transportation. And Dr. Marr, you want to start?
I think from my perspective, I think the biggest challenge is our community's impatience with us not going green fast enough. And there's a challenge with technology infrastructure. You know, where our installation is over 100 years old. It's very expensive to go green. And so it's a combination of resources to go green, the lack of technology to go green fast enough, but then also I think the community noise against us not being green enough can also be a challenge.
And in our case, you know, one of the things we as airports share is also a challenge because as much as we embrace new and emerging technology, we can only use what is certificated for use by the FAA. So we don't get to decide that, you know, this Watt EV truck is really, really cool and we want a fleet of them. If it goes inside the fence, FAA is involved in that decision, as they should be. In our case, we updated our green energy element in 2020 and have been pursuing every available technology that we possibly can. So we operate our executive terminal. So that was a great place to be able to say, if you've got electric or hydrogen ground support equipment, you can test it here. And we've done that. We've done that with our partners at Amazon, who've done, you know, some great work advancing hydrogen deck loaders. They are the largest TLD launch customer of all electric ground support equipment, pushback tugs, main deck loaders. We operate electric on our site. But just because the tech exists doesn't mean you can get it. So take EV, for example. We went to Edison and said, okay, we need chargers. And we're going on our 6th year of that journey. And are finally, the end of this year, about to finish the installations on the very last of 130 EV charging locations. Problem is, the time we ordered them, they were next generation chargers. And now they're, you know, almost antiques. I feel like it. But same thing with just getting an electric truck for our construction or fleet division. It took 4 years. We ordered it and the thing took 4 years to get here. And we can't, we're airports. We can't close. We never sleep. We can't have technology that isn't working, isn't producing for our customers and our customers' customers. So what sounds simple, I wish was. And so I think if the technology exists and we can access it, I think our 3 airports are all in. We can't buy this stuff fast enough. And I think Atif can obviously point to a number of vehicles running around his shop right now that are a testimony to that same thing. So just because we're an airport doesn't mean we can just order off the shelf, and a lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah, I mean, to Mike's point, we have 8 electric buses that we bought from a company called Proterra, and Edison is having a hard time helping us build the infrastructure to charge them, a permanent EV station, and then that company ended up filing bankruptcy. So there's not many more companies that are left that do EV buses. So now when we have them 1 or 2 go down because the technology's not there, the infrastructure's not there, it sits for almost 4 to 6 weeks until we can find somebody that can come and repair it. Another challenge is our airline partners. What we found this year is our airline partners would take their newest and best, most electric air operations equipment for the air side, and they would take it to other airports that are on the coast. So now we've instituted what we call our vehicle operation plan. And so now we implement fines, et cetera. We work with the airlines very closely to make sure that doesn't happen, because they've made an agreement with us through our MOU with SCAQMD with regards to our emissions and a certain level that we need to meet. And exactly, what was said with regards to the technology, it all has to be approved by the FAA. The three of us get called and asked to speak at conferences about air taxis, electric, electric planes, et cetera. Well, that's all nice, but the FAA has not certified any of these companies yet. So it's a nice topic to talk about, but we're still a ways away with regards to the infrastructure to support it. One of my biggest fears is once we get to the place that we need for at least the EV infrastructure, then all of a sudden that is old and it's all about hydrogen. So it is kind of like and we're trying to be very strategic about what we implement and be forward thinking as well when it comes to the hydrogen piece. Just today in our session, I received a text message from one of our board members who's an amazing county supervisor of all electric tugs that are being built in Fontana, and that we need to look at putting them in, but let's make sure we think about if they're hydrogen powered as well. So, these are the challenges that our teams are facing every single day.
Mike, you wanted to say something?
And if I could just, buttress the feedback of my colleagues, the other thing that we've got is you look at these airports on a Google map and think, oh, you have all this land. Well, we really don't. There again, we just like the logistics discussion, we have to plan out 20, 30 years in the future as an airport. And that real estate becomes really precious. And there's few areas where you can innovate because you are regulated by the FAA. And so, one point when we first started down the base reuse journey, we thought, well, gosh, we got a great asset or asset rich. Well, that's really not the case when you actually break it down and look at what the operational restrictions are, and what land is left to be able to do charging stations, things of that nature. So being able to maximize that, I think is every airport's challenge, but there are opportunities, and we're all looking at them.
That's great. Is there another question because I have a follow-up. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Can I just do my follow-up question really quick? So we really hear that there's, of course, regulatory issues because those also exist. There's infrastructure issues. There's new technology issues. Hydrogen, I think, is an interesting component in this because as well as, hydrogen planes could be in our future. And how does that infrastructure get onto these facilities? As again, one of our last dialogues, we were at Foothill Transit and looking at just their hydrogen infrastructure. And it's, bringing the hydrogen in on diesel trucks. I was trying to think of some way nice to say it, but, bringing it in through driving it in with diesel vehicles. So really thinking about that infrastructure build out and how do we get, additional funds to this region, because it is critical, I think, to our future and the quality of life in our region. So again, a pitch out for SBCTA and the funding mechanisms and getting additional funds to our area and those getting a direct flight to Washington, D.C. I'll throw that out as well, because anybody who's flown to Washington, D.C. in January, you have to go direct. Otherwise, you're not getting there. So, but my follow-up question, sorry, that was a long segue, is additionally, we didn't hear about is workforce. So what are your workforce issues? And thinking about the training and the fixing of new technologies. So that's a piece that we hear in a lot of new technologies that are out there. There's not enough folks on the ground to actually do the maintenance and the critical work of making sure that those technologies are working, and other workforce issues that you might have. But we'll start with online. Adif, what do you have to say about what are your workforce needs, and what are you thinking about in the future as you plan out? And again, a key component, and then we'll have Dr. Martin and Mr. Burrows.
Yeah, I think from a workforce standpoint, we are very keen to always partner, especially within our region on the different job fairs, et cetera. When you hear about the aviation challenges with regards to workforce, one of the things that we've started to see, it had taken a little bit, but we've started to see is that there are people out there that want to work within the aviation industry. It's not just limited to pilots, et cetera. So there's a lot of opportunities available on any airport campus. And that's something that we're starting to see as people understand that and realize that those that we can accommodate those jobs. One of the challenges is it is a very, very rigorous background security process. And there are some individuals that go through the process and then unfortunately for one reason or another may get disqualified. So we've found that very challenging for us to manage and deal with. And with regards to what we have seen, I get very frustrated when we do recruitment and we get close to somebody that we think is a good fit and their final question is, so I only have to come in one day? Well, it is an airport, so we are open all the time. Like Mike said, we never close. It's very hard to do certain jobs remote. So, so that's also been something that we've been having to battle with members of our staff from an administrative standpoint. I mean, those are kind of some of the bigger things that we're seeing. But I think as a region, and what I have seen from our elected officials as well, is not everybody needs to go to I understand that the trades out of high school are becoming a lot more prominent, and there's a lot of those jobs available as well on the airport campus.
Mike or Martin?
Now, I think you have a really cool example with the UAS and Kim. I think that's a cool model at San Bernardino. And I think it's a go-to model, actually, when you talk about incorporating new technology with your educational institutions and then your a big employer like the airport. I really like that model, what San Bernardino is doing. For March, we're very big on our military personnel and the transition from active duty to civilian life. It's a big challenge right now that making that connectivity for our veterans. And so we do have a big veteran focus over at March, like with the housing that I shared. And then also we are active members on a few military sort of associations. And so what we try to do, having that big employment center is an advantage for us in that we try to partner with our industries as much as possible and making the connectivity between existing job needs for our businesses and then the skill sets that are coming out of the military and those of our veterans. But I think I'm really big on internships and apprenticeships as well. A few years ago, some time ago, JPA sort of tried to get into the manufacturing industry by creating this program called MARS for Manufacturing, Aerospace Research and Science. We're actually trying to revive that effort by targeting some state funding for a training center and placing it in our business center where we can marry this idea of new and upcoming technologies like UASs, bringing in our military, and then our colleges, our community colleges, and our universities in our region, and helping build entrepreneurship. That's a conversation we're talking about right now. So there's a lot of things that we're wanting to do for workforce, help meet the needs for our military veterans, but also our local communities. About 70% of the people that work at our business center are actually from the surrounding cities in the county area, so that's really big. But we recognize with the rise of new technology, our education is playing a little bit of catch up. So what is that gap that we can do from an industry perspective? Because a lot of our professors here know that you can only teach theory in the classroom, but how do you bring in practice to make the theory more tangible for our students, and then helping them, invest those talents here so they're not leaving the region. So I think there's a big piece that industry like our airports can play into raising new talents and partnering up with centers like the UAS Center that Kim is running over at San Bernardino, and expanding that into other arenas that introduce new technology concepts for our students coming out of colleges, and then providing some spaces for them in business parks where they can do the practicum, practice the theories that they're learning in school. So I think there's opportunities for partnerships much bigger than what our airports can offer. I think we as our airports can be your industry partners for the colleges. So whatever San Bernardino College is working on, as far as if you want to place interns, apprenticeships, or apprentices in our industries, we're very much open to that, because we do want to make sure we're nurturing the local talent and growing them here locally for our economy.
And then I would just really commend both our counties. They've got really incredible workforce development teams. We rely on them constantly, because it's one thing for us as airports to say, come on in, set up shop. But that workforce has to be here. It has to be here. Otherwise, those employers don't invest and they don't stay. So we, with any internal hires, do a lot of close coordination with those teams. But as an industry, I think we've got to do a better job of helping put a face on airport jobs, because there's so much going on inside the fence that selfishly we get to see all the time. But intuitively, for a young person, coming out of high school, that's not going to be the switch that comes on. They think flight attendant, they think pilot. And we have a huge global shortage still of pilots. Not that we don't need them, we do. But the other one that you don't hear, I think, enough about is air traffic controllers. There's a lot of discussion in DC about that, as there should be. But that has been a career path that has been waning for many, many years. And I know when I was in high school, the last thing I thought of was, oh, I'll be an air traffic controller. How cool. But I think as airports, we can do a better job of highlighting those career paths. And for us, Kim's obviously got a great toolkit coming down out of the K through 12 area, and that's where we've got to be. So we try to open our doors any chance we get to those high school groups. We just had Cajon High's construction and vehicle pathway crew out last Friday, and to be able to do just that, show them, hey, you can actually be on an airport working on, a fuel truck, those types of things. But I think we need to be able to make that picture real for young people. And as Audif said, it's not necessarily the pilot or the air traffic controller. It's somebody fueling an airplane. We need fuelers all the time. And in our case, the biggest challenge isn't getting the recruitment out there. It's quite honestly somebody actually showing up for the interview too. We get an amazingly shocking number of cancellations and no-shows, which drives Kat completely nuts. But when we make those connections, what we found is retention rate is off the charts. It's just being able to find that right fit and be able to show somebody they can drive down the street and work at their local airport. So.
Thank you so much. One more question.
One more question. We're going to selfishly end this wonderful session by talking about people transportation. Okay, so first I want to thank Mike, Atif, as well as Dr. Martin for being here today. And my questions are really probably geared more for Mike and Atif, but also, relevant issues to think about in Riverside County as well. I mean, we're making significant investments in public transportation in the region, some of which have already been mentioned. The West Valley Connector, we're contemplating the tunnel to Ontario from the Cucamonga Station. And I know Dr. Martin mentioned, the transit connections in Riverside County. How do we foster our partnership to maximize those investments and get people out of their cars, whether it's your employees or whether it's the traveling public? How do we maximize those investments? And we also are a resource to this community in terms of our ability to bring federal funding into this region. I mean, for the West Valley Connector, of an approximately $300 million project, we brought in 95%, we brought in over $200 million in federal funding. So that funding, the funding levels for public transportation are higher right now than they've ever been. And so we want to be a partner in bringing those investments in. What can we do to strengthen that partnership? We have current connections to both airports right now, primarily being used by employees. But what can we do to kind of take that to the next level and help reduce traffic congestion and make it easy for people to connect to your airports when they're traveling?
Atif, you wanna give that one a go real quick?
Yeah, well, we appreciate the partnership with Omnitrans. I know it plays a very, very big impact to our airport. And kind of like Aaron said, though, it is a lot of employees to the airport, and getting the general public to be able to take advantage of it and utilize it. I think what we have seen, I think what we need to do more of is the collaboration as two entities, from our marketing, from our advertising, and the way we go about talking about how we get to and from the airport. We're great about talking about SoCal so easy. We haven't taken it the step further of elaborating on the different ways. When you see all of the ads that we put out and the marketing that we do, and I think there's a gap there that we need to probably figure out how we could close that gap and do a better job in making that happen. I think some of that challenge has to do with our different boards that Aaron and I share some of the same board members. The same thing with some of the other entities is that we have to get them to start thinking in that way. I know our board president does, but I don't think everybody necessarily does in seeing those opportunities that are available, regardless of what your role is at that, different board meeting or the different committee meeting that you're having. What we haven't done as a region, and what Mike and Dr. Martin and I are trying to do, is we haven't done a great job of bringing everybody together and working as one. There's been way too much of individual success stories, if you will, as opposed to figuring out we're just one small piece of a very big puzzle. If you look at other regions within Southern California that have done it well and have been successful, we haven't necessarily followed that road yet. However, I will say that we have the right, I believe, the people in place to start changing that narrative. And that's what we're slowly starting to do. And I think when that narrative starts to change, we're going to start to see a lot more utilization of a lot of the different opportunities we have out there for people to utilize any type of transportation within the Inland Empire. We have become truly what I believe the center of Southern California. Our time is now, and we have to take advantage of it. I know that wasn't as specific, but I hope that that kind of answers the question. I just think there's lots of opportunities there to do a better job of what you were getting at, Aaron.
And then I would just say that collectively, each of us have projects. It doesn't mean that we're talking to each other about those projects. And I think taking the blinders off and realizing that every dollar to this region is a dollar that we would otherwise give to somebody else makes it everybody's job to chime in and make sure that we're not cannibalizing the various pots of money. But the fact of the matter is those are rare opportunities, and the types of projects that you and Otis deal in take a long time to permit and entitle and be able to get shovels in the ground, which means we all need to be championing those opportunities. But as airports have new projects coming online, is making sure we're reaching out and let you know and getting that feedback at the ground level stage, because infrastructure is difficult on a good day, and it ain't getting any cheaper. So combining resources for our region, I think, is really the recipe for our future.
Okay. So, my thought is, my success is really, I'm a reliever airport with Ontario and San Bernardino. So I feel like if we could put casino slots, make Ontario a destination. I'm just saying, I think people will get on public transit if you give them a reason to get on public transit, either for need of transportation. But I just feel like if we made our airports sort of destination areas, and that could motivate people to then take public transit. I would definitely, my team, we fly out of Ontario because it's convenient, but we don't think about taking public transportation to the airport. And so what is it that would motivate us to utilize that? I think the convenience of it, the schedules, increasing schedules, availability of times for people to get on there. But I definitely think focusing on our airports and making the investments in marketing and motivating people to utilize public transit, I think that might help.
It's really quick because we are over time, and I'm a stickler on time.
It's very quick. I just want to make sure you know, Audif, that these West Valley Connector buses have luggage racks on them. So we need people with suitcases on these buses. We gave up seats for those luggage racks. So I just don't know if you know that detail.
We'll start offering, you know what? We could start offering discounts at all of our retail stores if you show us your Omnitrans ticket, if you took public transportation in.
Yeah, our maintenance director's over here is saying 4 seats, 4 seats. We gave up 4 seats on those buses for those luggage racks. So we're aspiring.
Exactly.
That's fine. We just, we have to think bigger. We want to think bigger.
All right. Well, with that, thinking bigger, thank you all for being here. Thank you for being part of this conversation. It was really great. I want to thank our speakers once more for being and taking some time and sharing their wealth of information with us. And thank you all for being online today. And I hope you all have a great day. Thanks to the staff of the LTC as well. They couldn't do it without them. So have a great week, and we'll hope to see you soon at our next dialogue.